Captain Heyun stood at the viewport of the HS Prometheus, watching the stars drift by with a heaviness in her chest. The cold light of distant suns reflected in her dark eyes. Once the pride of the human fleet, the most advanced warship ever made now floated in a monitored orbital graveyard, stripped of its dignity but not its power. The ship was huge, over 2 kilometers long, with sleek lines that hid weapons that could tear apart planets. Its white hull still gleamed despite months of neglect. Inside, most of the rooms were empty, the halls quiet except for the soft hum of basic systems. Heyun placed her hand on the cool glass. She had commanded the Prometheus for 5 years before the ban. The ship was more home to her than any place on Earth. Its current state of forced sleep felt wrong, like a caged animal that should be running free. "Thinking about the old days, Captain?" asked Lieutenant Sun, looking up from his control station. He was one of the few crew members still assigned to the ship, mostly to make sure it didn't drift out of its allowed space. "The old days weren't so long ago," Heyun replied with a small smile. "Just 8 months since the Prometheus had been forced into retirement. 8 months since she had felt the thrill of real command." Sun's console beeped. "Captain, Admiral De's transmission is coming through." Heyun straightened her dark blue uniform, smoothing out invisible wrinkles. Admiral De rarely called, and never with good news. "Put him through." The main screen lit up with Admiral De's weathered face. His gray hair was cut short, and the lines around his eyes seemed deeper than when she had last seen him. "Captain Heyun, how's my favorite grounded officer?" he asked, his voice gruff but friendly. "Bored, sir. The Prometheus wasn't built to collect space dust." "That might change soon." Dad leaned closer to the screen. "I'm authorizing a maintenance crew for the Prometheus. Off the books." Heyun felt her pulse quicken. "Sir, the Galactic Concorde's ban is precisely why we're keeping her operational," Dai interrupted. His eyes darted to the side, checking if anyone might be listening. "This stays between us. Select a skeleton crew you trust. Official records will show routine preservation protocols." Heyun's mind raced with possibilities. She thought back to the demonstration that had caused the diplomatic crisis. The memory was still fresh and painful. It had been a standard joint exercise with Concorde forces, 20 alien ships against the Prometheus. Heyun had been ordered to show just enough capability to impress the aliens without revealing too much. The Prometheus had only used 3% of its weapons during the exercise. That small fraction had been enough to simulate the destruction of the entire alien battle group in less than 2 minutes. The Prometheus's quantum displacement technology had allowed it to be in multiple places at once, firing weapons that seemed to ignore normal physics. The alien ambassadors had immediately called for an emergency session of the Galactic Concorde, the alliance of 57 spacefaring species that govern most of the known galaxy. "The humans have created an extinction-level weapon," Ambassador Rock had declared before the Concorde. The tall, 4-armed alien had waved his upper limbs in agitation. "Their quantum displacement technology violates the natural laws of warfare. No species should wield such power." The footage of Ambassador Rock's speech had been played on every news channel across Earth and its colonies. Within 2 days, the Prometheus had been unanimously banned under the Extinction-Level Technology Prohibition Act. Humanity's standing in the Concorde had been severely damaged. Now, Heyun and her skeleton crew were glorified caretakers, making sure the ship didn't break down while politicians argued about what to do with it. Some wanted the Prometheus dismantled completely. Others saw it as important leverage in galactic politics. "I'll need at least 15 people to get basic systems truly operational again," Heyun told the Admiral. "You'll have them by tomorrow. Choose carefully, people who can keep secrets." "What's this really about, sir?" Heyun asked. "The Concorde inspectors come by every month. They'll notice if we're doing more than basic maintenance." Admiral De's expression grew more serious. "Let's just say I have a feeling we might need the Prometheus sooner rather than later. Call it an old man's intuition." As Heyun considered the Admiral's cryptic orders, A soft chime sounded from another console. The ship's AI spoke in its calm, genderless voice. "Captain, I'm detecting an unusual signal at the edge of Sector 7. Hei-Yun frowned and moved to the sensor station. Sector 7 is uninhabited. Correct. The sector contains no known settlements or outposts. The signal does not match any known communication protocols in my database. Admiral Da leaned forward. What kind of signal? It appears to be a distress call, the AI replied, but the encoding is unknown. Pattern suggests artificial origin, not natural cosmic phenomenon. Hei-Yun studied the visual representation of the signal on the screen. It pulsed in an odd rhythm, almost like a heartbeat, but with irregular pauses between beats. How long has it been broadcasting? She asked. Signal began approximately 47 minutes ago. It repeats every 92 seconds. Hei-Yun felt a familiar rush of adrenaline, the kind she used to feel before a mission. Her fingers tapped against the console as she thought. Forward it to the Admiral's secure channel, she said finally. Admiral Da nodded on the screen. I'll bring this to the Defense Council immediately. In the meantime, proceed with the maintenance preparations. I want the Prometheus ready to move within 72 hours if needed. Sir, if the Concorde finds out. Then I'll take the blame, Da said firmly. Sometimes you have to break rules to protect people, Captain. I think you understand that better than most. After the transmission ended, Hei-Yun stood in silence for a moment. Lieutenant Sun watched her cautiously. Are we really going to power up the Prometheus again? He asked quietly. The aliens will go crazy if they find out. Hei-Yun looked out at the stars again. Somewhere out there, something or someone was sending a signal that didn't match anything in human or alien records. It could be nothing. Space was full of strange phenomena, but it could also be something that required the unique capabilities of the Prometheus. Start making a list of crew recommendations, she told Sun. People who won't talk, who know the ship's systems well. She turned from the viewport, a new energy in her movements. The Prometheus might fly again sooner than anyone expected. And this time, we won't be holding back. The emergency meeting of Earth's Defense Council had stretched past its 4th hour. 12 men and women sat around a large oval table, their faces showing various levels of anger, fear, and frustration. The room was deep underground in the heart of New Seoul, protected by layers of security to prevent any alien surveillance. Absolutely not, shouted Councillor Jin, slamming his fist on the table. His face had turned red with anger. We cannot risk breaking the Concorde ban. Do you have any idea what would happen? Admiral Da sat opposite him, looking calm despite the attack. Unlike the others, Da wore his full military uniform, the medals on his chest catching the light when he moved. Yes, Counselor, I know exactly what would happen, Da said quietly. The Concorde would impose sanctions. Perhaps they would even expel humanity from their alliance. But let me tell you what will happen if we do nothing. He touched a control on the table. A hologram appeared in the center, showing the strange signal from Sector 7. Our analysts have been studying this for the past 12 hours, Da explained. The signal from Sector 7 contains patterns that match ancient warnings described in the Cure archives. Councillor Min leaned forward. She was the oldest person in the room, her white hair pulled back tightly. The Cure archives. Those are just old stories. The Cure civilization vanished 10,000 years ago, Da replied. But they left warnings about a force they called the Void Eaters. The patterns in this signal match their descriptions with 89% accuracy. He touched another control. The hologram changed to show a star map with a line of systems highlighted. 3 outpost stations along this border have gone silent in the past week, Da continued. No distress calls. No signs of attack. They simply stopped communicating. The room fell silent as the council members studied the map. If I'm right, we're facing something worse than diplomatic sanctions, Da said into the silence. We're facing an enemy that the Cure couldn't defeat with technology far more advanced than what the Concorde has today. Counselor Jin shook his head. So you want to send our banned warship, the very ship that almost got us kicked out of the Concorde? I want to send our best defense, Dad corrected. The Prometheus is the only ship we have that might stand a chance. He looked around the table, meeting each council member's eyes. What the aliens fear, Admiral Da continued, is that we've weaponized quantum reality itself. And they're right to be afraid. But now we might need that very capability. The debate raged on for another hour. In the end, the vote was 7-5 in favor of Da's plan. You have conditional authorization, Council President Kang told him. The Prometheus may investigate, but it must not engage unless directly attacked. And if the Concorde demands its return, you will comply immediately. Da nodded, hiding his relief. Understood, Madam President. While the council argued, Captain He-yun sat in her small quarters aboard the Prometheus. The room was simple. A bed, a desk, and a small window looking out at the stars. She had never bothered to decorate it with personal items. The ship itself was her home. He-yun reviewed personnel files on her tablet. If they were going to reactivate the Prometheus, she needed a crew she could trust. People who understood the risks and would follow her orders without question. She selected them carefully, creating a list of outcasts and specialists, people with nothing to lose. Commander Tai had been her first choice for second in command. He was a tactical genius, with an uncanny ability to predict enemy movements. His career had ended when he disobeyed direct orders to save a colony ship, resulting in a court-martial for insubordination. He now worked as a security consultant, his talents wasted on corporate clients. For engineering, she needed someone who truly understood the quantum entanglement drive. Engineer Yoon was the obvious choice. Her theories on quantum mechanics had been deemed too radical by the scientific community, but her understanding of the Prometheus's systems was unmatched. She had helped design the ship, but had been pushed out of the project when she suggested even more advanced applications of the technology. Medical Officer Mai was an expert in xenobiology, with experience treating injuries from alien weapons. She had spent 5 years studying with the Viridian healers before a political dispute had forced her to return to Earth. Communications specialist Wu was fluent in 17 alien languages and had an ear for patterns that computers missed. He had once decoded a Tarjan battle plan that saved 3 human colonies, but his methods had been questioned by military leadership. He-yun added 15 more names to the list. Pilots, weapons specialists, sensor operators. All were highly skilled, and all had reasons to join a mission that might end their careers or their lives. Captain, the ship's AI announced, breaking her concentration. Admiral Da has transmitted new orders. A file appeared on her tablet. As He-yun read it, she felt a mix of excitement and dread. The council had approved the mission, but with restrictions that might make success impossible. She took a deep breath, trying to center herself. Prepare for crew arrival. We launch in 6 hours. The maintenance crews left the Prometheus at 1900 hours, their shuttles returning to Earth as scheduled. What they didn't report was that they had accidentally reactivated several essential systems, including weapons and the quantum drive. By 2100 hours, He-yun's skeleton crew had arrived and taken their positions. 23 people to run a ship designed for a crew of 300. It would be difficult, but they were all experts in their fields. He-yun sat in the captain's chair on the bridge, feeling the ship coming alive around her. The main lights had been turned on, the air circulation systems were working at full capacity, and the soft hum of the engines vibrated through the deck. Commander Ta stood beside her, his tall frame rigid with tension. All stations report ready, Captain. He-yun nodded. Lieutenant Sun, status of the orbital restraints. Sun's fingers moved across his control panel. Restraints are still active. We're locked in place by 20 magnetic tethers. Can we break free without damaging the ship? Yes, Captain. But it will trigger every alarm in the system. He-yun looked at the main view screen, which showed Earth below them. Beautiful and peaceful. She was about to make a decision that might prevent her from ever seeing it again. "Disengage orbital restraints," she ordered. "Captain," Sun warned, turning in his chair to face her. "The restraints are monitored. Every species in the Concord will know within minutes that we've broken free." Hei-Yun met his worried gaze with a steady one of her own. "That's a diplomatic problem for people with desk jobs. Our problem is in Sector 7. She straightened in her chair. "Break us free." Sun turned back to his panel. "Yes, Captain. Disengaging restraints now." The ship shuddered as the magnetic clamps were forcibly disengaged. For a moment, the Prometheus drifted free, silent in space. "Engage quantum engines. Low power," Hei-Yun ordered. "Take us out of Earth orbit. Heading 227 Mark 34. The Prometheus's quantum engines hummed to life, glowing with a blue light that shouldn't have been possible according to conventional physics. The ship began to move, slowly at first, then with increasing speed. Across the galaxy, alarm systems blared as humanity's forbidden weapon slipped into the darkness of space. On 100 worlds, diplomats were awakened with the news. In the Concord headquarters, emergency sessions were called. But the Prometheus was already gone, headed toward a mystery that might prove more dangerous than any diplomatic crisis. The Prometheus slipped out of quantum space with barely a ripple. The forbidden warship hung against the backdrop of unfamiliar stars at the edge of Sector 7, its sleek white hull reflecting the dim light of a distant sun. On the bridge, Captain Hei-Yun leaned forward in her command chair. "Status report." "All systems normal," Lieutenant Sun replied from his station. "Quantum transition complete with no detection signatures. Sensors active," Commander Tai added, his eyes fixed on the main display, scanning for the source of the distress signal. The bridge was quiet except for the soft beeping of instruments. The skeleton crew worked with practiced efficiency, each person handling tasks that would normally require 3 or 4. The main screen showed the empty space around them, or what appeared to be empty at first glance. As the sensors continued their work, small dots of light began to appear. "Captain, I'm detecting debris," reported Tai, his voice tense. "Analyzing composition. It appears to be from a Vec exploration vessel." Hei-Yun frowned. The Vec were an insectoid species known for their caution. The Vec don't venture this far out. They never go beyond the safety of Concord space. Engineer Yoon moved to Ta's station and studied the readings. She was a small woman with quick movements and eyes that missed nothing. "They didn't venture out willingly," Yoon said, examining the scan results. "Look at these rupture patterns in the hull fragments. The ship was pulled out of its flight path. You can see the stress marks where it tried to break free." Hei-Yun stood and walked to the sensor display. "Any life signs?" "None detected," Tae replied grimly. Communications Officer Wu suddenly turned from his station, his face pale. "Captain, I'm picking up transmissions from multiple Concord vessels. They're converging on our position." "They found us already?" Hei-Yun asked, surprised. "No, they're responding to the same distress signal we detected," Wu explained. "But they've also been alerted to our presence. They're demanding we power down immediately." "How long until they intercept?" Wu checked his readings. 3 hours at their maximum speed. Hei-Yun returned to her chair and made a quick decision. "Then we have 3 hours to investigate before this turns into a diplomatic incident. Take us closer to the debris field, 1/4 speed." The Prometheus moved forward slowly, its powerful sensors probing deeper into the area. As they approached the scattered remains of the Vec ship, something else caught their attention. "Captain, I'm detecting an anomaly within that asteroid cluster," Ta said, pointing to a collection of space rocks ahead. "Natural formation?" Hei-Yun asked. "No, there's something hidden inside it. Something massive." The main screen zoomed in on the asteroid cluster. At first glance, it looked natural, just a collection of space rocks that had gathered together over millions of years. But as the Prometheus's advanced sensors penetrated the visual camouflage, they revealed something else entirely. "It's artificial," Hume said in amazement. And according to these readings, it's ancient, possibly predating any known civilization in the Concord. The object appeared to be a structure of some kind, built into or perhaps disguised by the asteroid cluster. It was dark and showed no signs of power or activity. Could this be the source of the distress signal? He-Yun asked. Unlikely, Wu replied. The signal characteristics don't match. The structure appears completely dormant. He-Yun studied the image thoughtfully. Take us in closer. I want a better look at that thing. As the Prometheus approached to within 10,000 kilometers, something unexpected happened. Lights began to appear across the surface of the structure. Energy readings are spiking, Hume reported urgently. It's awakening. Back us off, He-Yun ordered immediately. Engines not responding. Sun called out in alarm. We're caught in some kind of tractor beam. The ship shuddered as an invisible force grabbed hold of it. On the main screen, they watched as the ancient structure began to change. What had appeared to be part of the asteroid was unfolding, revealing its true nature. It's a ship, Ta whispered in awe. A colossal vessel. As the structure continued to unfold, they realized how massive it truly was. The Prometheus, at 2 kilometers long, was considered large by human standards. The alien vessel dwarfed it completely, stretching to at least 20 kilometers in length. The Vex ship must have triggered some kind of automated response system when it approached, Hume theorized, her fingers flying over her console. And now we've done the same. He-Yun's mind raced through their options. Can we break free of the tractor beam? Not with conventional engines, Hume replied. But if we use the quantum displacement drive at full power, we might be able to shift partially out of this reality and escape. Before He-Yun could give the order, Lieutenant Sun shouted a warning. Captain, 3 Concord enforcement vessels just emerged from quantum space much earlier than expected. They're charging weapons. The main screen split to show 3 sleek, predatory-looking ships approaching rapidly. Their design identified them as Gen combat vessels, the Concord's primary enforcement arm. A communication request flashed on Wu's panel. They're hailing us. Put them through, He-Yun said, straightening her uniform. The face that appeared on the screen belonged to a Gen commander, a reptilian being with golden scales and vertical pupils. Yes, Prometheus, the alien said in accented standard. You are in violation of Galactic Concord Treaty Section 947. Power down all systems and prepare to be boarded or face immediate destruction. He-Yun stepped forward. Commander, we're investigating a distress signal and have encountered an unknown vessel of significant power. I suggest we postpone our diplomatic differences until we understand what we're dealing with. The Gen commander's eyes narrowed. Your suggestions are irrelevant. You will. The transmission cut off abruptly. On the screen, they watched as the ancient vessel suddenly emitted a visible pulse of energy that spread outward like a ripple in water. When it reached the Concord ships, their lights flickered and went out. One by one, they went dark, drifting powerless in space. What just happened? He-Yun demanded. Hume studied the readings from the pulse with growing horror. The pulse technology. It's like nothing I have ever seen. It's targeting quantum communication nodes. It's severing their connection to reality itself. Can it affect us the same way? He-Yun asked. Our quantum shielding is holding for now, but I don't know for how long. Suddenly, Wu's console lit up with incoming transmissions. Captain, we're receiving distress calls. Hundreds of them, from all across the frontier worlds. The color drained from his face as he listened. They're all reporting the same thing. Unknown vessels appearing in their systems, emitting energy pulses that disable all technology. Then, silence. A map appeared on the main screen, showing a systematic pattern of systems going dark, creating a path that was clearly headed toward the heart of inhabited space. He-Yun looked at the massive vessel that held them in its grip, then at the helpless Concord ships. Whatever this ancient threat was, it was far worse than any human weapon the Concord had feared. She made her decision. Battle stations. We're engaging the ancient vessel. Captain, Tai objected, stepping closer to her chair. We have direct orders to stand down. We're not supposed to engage under any circumstances. He-Yun met his gaze steadily. And I have a duty to protect life, she replied. Even the lives of those who fear us. The Prometheus might be the only ship in the galaxy with the technology to fight this thing. She turned to face her crew. This is why we exist. This is why we built this ship. Now let's show the Concorde what the most overpowered human warship can really do. Initiating quantum displacement drive, Engineer Yum announced, her fingers dancing across the controls. She worked quickly, her face showing both fear and focus. The forbidden technology had never been used in real combat before. The lights on the bridge dimmed for a moment, then brightened with a blue glow. The Prometheus hummed with a deep sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The crew felt a strange sensation, as if they were both heavy and weightless at the same time. Quantum field stable, Yun reported. We now exist in 5 probability states simultaneously. This was the technology that had terrified the Concorde, the ability to exist partially in multiple states of reality at the same time. Instead of being in one place, the Prometheus was now in 5 places, all slightly different. Some were more real than others, but all could affect the real world. Captain He-Yun gripped the arms of her command chair. She watched on the main screen as the ancient vessel turned its attention toward them. It was massive and dark, with sections that seemed to disappear and reappear, as if it also played with reality itself. All weapons ready, Commander Tay reported from the tactical station. He-Yun nodded. Fire quantum torpedoes, pattern Alpha. The Prometheus shuddered slightly as it launched its most powerful weapons. The torpedoes streaked toward the ancient vessel, trailing blue light. As they flew, each torpedo split into dozens, then hundreds of quantum echoes. Each echo existed in a slightly different reality state. Some were fully real, others were just possibilities that might become real. The ancient vessel fired defensive weapons, destroying many of the torpedoes. But it couldn't target them all. How do you shoot at something that both exists and doesn't exist at the same time? The explosions rippled across the massive ship where the torpedoes hit, causing bright flashes that lit up space. The damage seemed minimal on the huge vessel, but they had achieved something important. They had its full attention now. It's powering weapons, Ta shouted, his voice tight with tension. Everyone on the bridge tensed. The ancient vessel's front section glowed with a strange purple light. Then it fired, a beam of energy that seemed to bend and distort the very fabric of space around it. The Prometheus shuddered violently as the beam passed through one of its quantum echoes. Warning lights flashed across control panels. Hull integrity at 82%, reported Sun, working quickly to assess the damage. That was just a glancing hit to one of our probability states. A direct hit would tear us apart. He-Yun's mind raced, trying to find a way to fight this enemy. The Prometheus was powerful, but the ancient vessel was far larger and seemed to use similar technology. Yun, she called to her engineer, can we modulate our quantum field to match their weapon's frequency? Yun looked up from her station, her eyes wide. In theory, yes, but... Do it, He-Yun ordered. She turned to Ta. Prepare to execute Maneuver Daedalus. Ta nodded, understanding immediately. Maneuver Daedalus was a complex attack pattern they had only simulated, never tried in real combat. It required perfect timing. Yun worked frantically at her console, modulating quantum field now. This will drain our power reserves quickly, Captain. The ancient vessel prepared another attack, its weapon glowing even brighter than before. As it fired, the Prometheus split into 7 distinct quantum shadows, each one appearing to be the real ship. The enemy beam lanced out, passing through 6 of the shadows without effect. The real Prometheus phased into an adjacent reality just long enough to avoid the impact, then reappeared behind the ancient vessel. It's working, Yun exclaimed, a rare smile crossing her face. But our quantum coherence is destabilizing. We can't maintain this for more than a few minutes before the ship tears itself apart. Fire all weapons, Hei-Yun ordered. The Prometheus unleashed everything it had: quantum torpedoes, phase cannons, and reality disruptors. The weapons struck the ancient vessel's rear section, causing visible damage for the first time. The battle continued, with the disabled Concorde ships watching helplessly. Their crews could see the Prometheus appearing and disappearing, sometimes in multiple places at once, dancing between realities in a way that shouldn't have been possible. The human ship struck again and again, each attack precisely targeted at the same sections of the ancient vessel. Despite its size advantage, the enemy couldn't bring all its weapons to bear on a target that refused to stay in one reality. Their power output is dropping, Tag reported after a particularly effective attack. We're hurting them. Hei-Yun allowed herself a small smile. Press the attack. Target their main power nodes. The Prometheus phased again, appearing directly above the ancient vessel. It fired a concentrated burst of quantum torpedoes at a section that showed higher energy readings. The explosion was massive, sending debris flying in all directions. For a moment, it seemed like they might win. Then suddenly, their sensors detected a change. "Captain," called Wu from communications, "I'm receiving transmissions from the frontier worlds again. They've been released. The other ancient ships are withdrawing." "The ancient ship is retreating," Ta confirmed, checking his readings. His expression changed suddenly. "No, wait. It's not retreating. It's changing configuration." On the main screen, they watched as the massive vessel began to fold in on itself. Sections disappeared into other sections in ways that defied normal space. Energy readings spiked dangerously across all sensors. "What's happening?" Hei-Yun demanded. Yoon's face had gone pale as she studied her console. "It's initiating some kind of self-destruction sequence," she warned. "The quantum cascade will take out everything in this sector, including those Concorde ships and possibly nearby star systems." Hei-Yun stood from her chair, feeling the weight of the moment. "Can we contain it?" Yoon hesitated, running calculations on her screen. "There's only one way," she said finally. "We'd need to create a quantum envelope around it using our displacement field. But that would mean sacrificing the Prometheus." Hei-Yun finished for her, "and possibly ourselves." The bridge fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. They might be able to contain the explosion, but the feedback would likely destroy their ship. There was a small chance they might survive, but it was very small. Hei-Yun looked around at her crew. These people had followed her on an unauthorized mission, risking their careers and freedom. Now they might pay with their lives. But in their eyes, she saw no fear, only determination. "Do it," she ordered quietly. As the Prometheus moved into position near the collapsing ancient vessel, Hei-Yun opened a communication channel to the Concorde ships that were still drifting nearby. "This is Captain Hei-Yun of that HS Prometheus," she said clearly. "We're about to contain a quantum explosion using our displacement field. If we're successful, take what you see back to the Concorde. Tell them what happened here." She closed the channel without waiting for a response. They had no time left. "Quantum displacement field at maximum," Yoon reported, her voice steady despite everything. "Extending field to surround the target." The Prometheus's engines glowed brighter than ever before as it pushed its band technology beyond all safety limits. A visible bubble of distorted space expanded from the ship, growing until it completely surrounded the ancient vessel. Inside the bubble, reality itself bent and twisted. As the enemy ship detonated, the explosion seemed to happen in slow motion. The blast wave expanded but then curved back upon itself, trapped within the quantum envelope the Prometheus had created. For one brilliant moment, the human ship glowed with impossible energy, containing a blast that could have destroyed worlds. The light was so bright that the watching Concorde ships had to darken their viewports. Then, suddenly, darkness fell. Where two ships had been, there was now only empty space and scattered debris. The Concorde ships drifted in silence, their crews staring in disbelief at what they had just witnessed. The most feared weapon in human history had just saved them all, and apparently destroyed itself in the process. 3 months after the battle with the ancient vessel, Captain Hei-yun stood before the Galactic Concorde assembly. She stood tall and straight in her dress uniform despite the pain from her healing injuries. Her left arm was still not fully healed, and the burned scars on her neck were visible above her collar. The assembly hall was enormous, with seats for representatives from all 57 member species. The curved walls rose high above them, with windows showing the stars beyond. Hei-yun had never been here before. Humans rarely received invitations to speak directly to the full assembly. Captain Hei-yun of Earth, said the chief speaker, a tall blue-skinned being. You may approach the center. Hei-yun walked forward slowly. She could feel thousands of alien eyes watching her, some with curiosity, some with respect, and some still with fear. Ambassador Rock stood at the speaker's platform. The four-armed alien looked different from when Hei-yun had last seen recordings of him condemning human technology. He seemed less angry, more thoughtful. The survival of the HFY Prometheus and its crew was unexpected, Ambassador Rock admitted, his voice echoing through the chamber. When your ship created the quantum envelope to contain the explosion, all observers believed you had been destroyed in the process. Hei-yun remembered those moments clearly. The ship had been torn apart by the strain of containing the explosion. Emergency systems had activated, placing key crew members in quantum stasis bubbles. When rescue ships found them 2 days later, only 20 of the 23 crew had survived. As was your sacrifice to save Concorde vessels that had come to destroy you, Rock continued. This action has caused us to reconsider many things. The great chamber hummed with murmured conversations in dozens of languages. Some representatives leaned close to each other, whispering opinions. Others sat in silence, their alien faces unreadable. The footage of the Prometheus containing the quantum explosion has been viewed by trillions across the galaxy, Rock said. Many call it the most significant event in Concorde history. On giant screens around the chamber, the recording played again. The Prometheus glowing with blue energy as it created a bubble around the ancient ship. The explosion that should have destroyed everything for light years around somehow folded in on itself. Then the flash that seemed to destroy the human ship. The ancient vessel has been identified in our oldest records, continued the ambassador. The Harvesters, as they were known, destroyed countless civilizations before vanishing 12 million years ago. Rock touched a control, and a new image appeared. Strange ships similar to the one the Prometheus had fought, attacking worlds that no longer existed. Their automated sentinel would have awakened their entire dormant fleet had you not intervened, Rock said. According to our historical data, once awakened, the Harvesters would have consumed all advanced life in our galaxy. Admiral Dai stepped forward beside Hei-yun. He had been her strongest supporter during her recovery, fighting political battles while she healed from her injuries. Then perhaps the Concorde might reconsider its position on human quantum technology, Day suggested, his voice firm but respectful. The chamber erupted in objections. Many representatives stood, shouting in their native languages. Some pounded their appendages on their desks. The fear that had led to the Prometheus being banned was still strong. Ambassador Rock raised all 4 of his hands for silence. Gradually, the noise died down. We fear what we do not understand, the ambassador said when quiet returned. That is true for all intelligent species. Humans approach quantum reality differently than any species we have encountered. Your minds evolved to embrace paradox in ways ours did not. He turned to face the assembly directly. The Harvester threat has shown us that dangers exist which we cannot face with our current technology. We must adapt or risk extinction. The debate that followed lasted for days. Hei-yun attended some sessions and rested during others, her body still healing. The arguments were heated, with many species deeply opposed to any human quantum technology being allowed. The new treaty took weeks to negotiate. Ambassador Rock worked closely with Admiral Dai, finding compromises that both sides could accept. The final agreement was complex, but its core was simple. The ban on quantum displacement technology would remain in general, but with a critical exception. A joint defense force would be created under combined oversight, with the Prometheus as its flagship. The ship would carry representatives from multiple species, and its quantum systems would have safeguards that required agreement from both human and alien officers to activate fully. On the day the treaty was signed, HFY walked the repaired corridors of her ship. The Prometheus had been rebuilt, stronger than before. Some sections were still under construction, but the essential systems were operational. Workers of various species nodded respectfully as she passed. The ship that had once been feared was now a symbol of cooperation and protection. HFY reached the bridge and paused in the doorway. It looked both familiar and strange. The basic layout was the same, but new stations had been added to accommodate the alien crew members who would be joining them. "Captain on deck," announced Commander Ta, who had survived with only minor injuries. The bridge crew, now a mix of humans and representatives from 7 Concord species, stood at attention. HFY saw Lieutenant Sun at his usual station. Engineer Yoon stood beside her new assistant, a tall insectoid being. Even Communications Officer Wu had returned, though he now walked with a limp. "At ease," HFY said, taking her place in the captain's chair. It felt good to be back where she belonged. "Status report. All systems operational," reported Engineer Yoon with a small smile. "Quantum displacement drive is within new treaty parameters. Life support optimized for all crew species," added Medical Officer Mai, who had been instrumental in designing the new multi-species accommodations. A tall, insect-like alien stepped forward from a new science station. "Captain, I am Science Officer Krell of the VEC. I am honored to serve on this vessel." The VEC hesitated, then added, "The harvester signal has been detected near the Perseus arm. Analysis suggests it is another sentinel awakening." The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew what this meant. The threat they had faced wasn't over, it was just beginning. HFY nodded, feeling the weight of command, but also the rightness of their mission. "Then that's where we're headed." Humanity didn't build the most powerful ship in the galaxy to keep it docked. She looked around at her mixed crew, former enemies, now allies against a common threat. Together, they might actually have a chance. As the Prometheus prepared to depart, Admiral Daz's final words from their last meeting echoed in HFY's mind. "They banned us because they feared us. Now they need us for the same reason. Make sure they never forget the difference between fear and respect." HFY straightened in her chair. Navigation, set course for the Perseus arm. Tactical, prepare defense scenarios. Communications, inform Concord Command of our departure. She paused, then gave the order that would begin their new mission. Engage quantum drive. The Prometheus hummed with power as the stars stretched before them, opening a path to both danger and hope. The end.